One of the things we love here at the Aussie Wire is building community, and that can take many different forms. Sometimes it takes a charitable form, sometimes it's a family form, sometimes it's actually done through business, and sometimes it can actually combine multiple of these into one. And today I want to talk to Jake Wolki. We've had him once here before to talk about mRNA vaccines, but something that he's been posting and doing recently through his farm and through his regenerative farming techniques and all the contacts that he has as a result of that really caught my eye as a great example of someone who's using their business acumen to try and make a difference and build community and help people in their moment of need. Jacob Wolki joins me now. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure.
Now, what's the story here? I've obviously been following your Facebook, following your Twitter. I'm a big fan of what you do. We eat your meat on a semi-regular basis. But tell us, what's the situation that came up that caught your eye that you wanted to try and help with?
Well, I started hearing from my colleagues in the industry, that being sheep farmers, that a lot of their sheep are so worthless that they're resorting to shooting them on farm because it's not even worth trucking them to the sale yards.
Yeah.
And I just never thought I'd hear about that happening again in my lifetime. You know, it happened in the 90s drought. Everyone's got a story about an uncle or a grandpa that had to do it in times gone by. And I thought that with all of our moral virtitude and all of our sophistication in the market, that we would never have to just dump animals en masse because they were so worthless. So that got under my skin, and I thought, well, what can we do in a small way just to help out our local farmers?
Well, before we get to what you're doing to help out, what's the cause of this? How can we end up in a situation where, I mean, meat is incredibly expensive on the supermarket shelf, where we're paying, for me anyway, eye-watering prices. How can it be simultaneously true that the price on the shelf is so high, but it's not even worth these farmers selling the animals?
There's multiple factors, and definitely the biggest one is the pause put on live exports in Western Australia. So Western Australia has 15 million sheep and, 1.5 million people. That's a pretty high sheep to consumer ratio. And that industry relies heavily on live exports, which has been paused under the current administration, and they're reviewing it. And, they're fighting for a ban. The Labor government and the Greens want to ban that whole industry. So we've got a classic situation of supply and demand. Also on the East Coast, we've got drought looking like it's setting in up north. So lots of farmers are working hard to destock their farm and protect their grass and their prized livestock that they're keeping behind. And so the abattoirs just can't keep up with the amount of livestock people are trying to clear, which is devaluing them.
Right, so it's the abattoirs that become the bottleneck. I was going to say, if we've got farms being sold off by farmers up north, and sheep being sold off by farmers up north and sheep being sold off by farmers in WA, surely that would lead to lower shelf prices. But you're saying the stock actually can't get to the shelf fast enough.
Well, I think that's one answer. I don't know the ins and outs of, what's going on in the head of these abattoirs and meat packers, but I think it would be a two-part thing. I think one, the meat's probably still selling at the higher prices, so why not keep charging it? And two, there's only so much production they can do. I've heard of farmers trying to sell animals to meat processors, and the meat processors are just not buying them because they're solidly booked out 10 weeks ahead.
Oh, wow. All right, so that's the problem. What have you chosen to do to try and help in at least some small way?
Well, in our business, Wolki Farm, we sell meat direct to consumer, but we sell our meat. And we're not able to keep up with demand with the way our business is going. So I thought, why don't we bring in some of these local farmers who are just getting devastated in the market at the moment and tell our customers, this isn't our meat, but this is good, local, clean, grass-fed and finished lamb from our peers. And we're trying to do it as cheap as we can so we're paying the farmer more. We're negotiating a private price direct with that farmer. They're not having to pay agent fees or yard fees.
Sure.
It's a set income for them, and I'm trying to process it as efficiently as I can in my butchery. We've got boys working overtime to do it because we're also at capacity on top of this.
Sure.
But we've got weekend shifts coming in to do this, and then we're offering half lambs to locals for $150 just to try shift some volumes. We're not going to save these farmers all their problems, but we might cover school fees for the term, or we might help them out with their fuel bill or whatever it might be.
Well, in moments like these, it is these small things that can make a very big difference for these farmers. We just got an image here that I've pulled off your Twitter, Jake, showing the Wolki Farm butchery in the background and some beautiful cuts of meat here in the foreground. I happen to know that that's a road in front of your butchery. I go there from time to time, and so someone's taken a big risk to be able to get that photo for you. I hope you've given them a raise. And here's
Look at myself.
You doing it yourself? Well, I hope you've given yourself a raise. And here is the list of, or here is your tweet of what you've done at Jake Wolki, if anyone wants to follow you. So, as you say, this isn't going to transform the lives of any farmers, but really that's what building community is about, is not so much the top key individuals who can change the world, but it's about each of us doing what little bit that we can. What's the response been like from consumers and from those farmers?
Oh, the response has been great. You know, we have ordered 30 lambs from our first farmer to arrive this Friday, and they're all pre-sold just locally.
Amazing.
For pickups this weekend. So they're all allocated and paid for, and we're hoping to move this forward every weekend. But people are crawling out of the woodworks, making room in their freezer, wanting to purchase this lamb and stockpile a bit, because it actually ends up being great priced lamb for the people that are buying it. They're getting a side of lamb for anywhere from sort of $15 to $18 a kilo, depending on the weight they end up getting. So the farmers are appreciative. They feel like somebody's, you know, having a crack for them and advocating for them in the media space, and consumers are happy. So the only people probably unhappy about the whole thing are my butchers.
Having to work weekend shifts. So you've said for pickup in the local area. I know that in your business you do also ship. Is there the opportunity for anyone that wants to be able to get their hands on some of this, at least around Australia?
So these first 2 drops we're reserving just for locals, because obviously, you know, we're a local business and that's where the bulk of our clientele is. So for the next 2 weekends, these are just available for local pickup. And then after that, we're going to open it up for the whole country, and we can ship it to people and meet them where they are. So we're shipping from Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney, Brisbane, you know, all up the East Coast. So a little bit of time, and people they'll be able to jump on the website and buy it, and they'll get it in a few weeks.
Well, I'll need a week or two just to make some room in the freezer. What's the website where people should go?
So it's wolkifarm.com.au.
Brilliant. And just full disclosure, there's no financial relationship here. This is not a paid advertisement where there's nothing in this for me or for the Aussie Wire. I just think this is a great story and a great example that you've set there, Jake, of how we can build community and help those in need. Jake, thank you so much for coming on the Aussie Wire.
Thanks for having me, Topher.